This deck is way too expensive for its own good. Hello, Mario from Team TYC here, back at it again with another deck profile, and this is Shadow Witches. Unfortunately, this is not as amazing as I thought it would be, but it's a waifu deck, so I'm okay with it. Starting off, our main grade 3 is Mesmerizing Witch Fiona. Act, counterboss 2, if this unit is Legion, choose up to 2 of your opponent's R with a rear guard. Your opponent reveals the top 10 cards of their deck, chooses 2 zeros from among them, and calls them to separate R. And the other skill being Act, choose a rearguard with the same name as a copy of a unit on your V, and kill it. If you do, you get to draw 2 cards. If your opponent has 2 grade zeros on their field. This card is pretty okay. The kill itself, draw 2, is pretty good for plussing, but unfortunately, this doesn't call over units. With your the zeros are not called over the rear guards, but if you have the other Legion, Reyes, then you're able to do that. So another Legion, of course, auto. When this unit Legion, you can choose one of your rear guards with Witch and kill it. If you do, your opponent gets minus 5,000 power for each grade 0 rear guard that they have. In most instances, this is your finisher if anything. This, comboed with the critical trigger, which I'll get to in a moment, allows you to keep stacking minus 5,000 power on your opponent's Vanguard, and yes, you can go negative. And her other skill, Act CB2, choose one of your opponent's R with a rear guard. They reveal top 5, choose a 0 from among them, and call it over that. And then shuffle deck, of course. For next, we got Witch of Secret Books, Addre. Her ability is continuous during your turn if you have a Vanguard with Witch in its name, and the number of grade 0 rearguards that your opponent has is 2 or more. This unit gets +2, and on hit, countercharge soul charge. This deck does actually struggle with counterboss management, which deviates your game plan into either you're going on full Witch, or you're going to be striding and kind of using this like a generic Shadow Paladin deck. But this does help with resources, but unfortunately, that's just kind of how the deck runs. We have 2 Witch of Intelligence Detail. So when this unit is placed on R, if you have 2 or more cards with Witch in its original card name on your V, you may pay the cost, which is nothing. It's a 0 cost. A 0 cost is paid by declaring its skill, basically. So your opponent reveals top 5, chooses a 0 from among them, calls it to R, and shuffles their deck. Relatively simple, just gets the job done. All you really want to do is just fill your opponent's board with zeros, and then you're pretty much good to go for all of your skills. So 4 of the Legion mate for Reyes. Its skill is simple. Upon placement, choose a circle with a rearguard on it, and your opponent chooses a 0 from drop zone and calls it to that R. So it's good just because you're putting zeros on their board so you can activate most of your skills, and you're kind of lowering their power for rearguards. 4 of the Legion mate for Fiona. This is a 12k attacker, and that's really it. Just helps with rush, makes magic numbers. It's pretty simple. 4 PG. Little Skull Witch Nemain. I'm only running this because I don't have the unflippers, and considering that this is a Legion deck, just being able to drop and draw is relatively important. Just be able to help assist in filling up Legion, but in total honesty, I would run the unflippers because counterboss management is relatively important in this deck. If you have the PGs, play them. If you don't, whatever, you'll survive. It's not really that bad. Alright, 3 Stride Fodder. Honestly, I was thinking of taking this out because I run 8 grade 3s, I've just always seen my grade 3s, and I've never felt really like that this has been needed. I just always see my grade 3s when I play this deck, so I never feel like this is needed. Honestly, I think 10k attackers would be better because I believe the philosophy of most Legion decks are rush orientated. So you rush, you push your opponent in, and then typically whatever your kill turn is with your strongest Legion, you just go into that and try to push for it. Your finisher being Reyes is your best bet because you can, once again, rush your opponent to 4-5, go into either the Stride Sinclair or just Reyes and just try to take him out then and there. If you don't, you can attempt to play a long game and plus using Aura Geyser and Drag Drivers, the strides which I'll show you in a moment. For Donna, her skill is the exact same thing as the Reyes Legion's mate. Upon placement, Soul Boss 1, choose one of your opponents are with a rear guard. They choose a 0 from drop zone and call it over it. It just helps to clear out rear guards or just lower their power in general. Once again, just you need 2 to activate your skill, so it helps your engine get online. And 2 of the cat. This thing's kind of like good, but I don't know. It does help filter out for Legion, which is important still. I don't know. It's good. It helps filter for Legion. It does help Turbo in total honesty, but you do have a relatively low hand size, so I guess it just makes the best of what you can get. And of course, most importantly, our starter, Creeping Dark Goat. Honestly, I was considering to run David for this because, once again, I always see my grade 3s. I never felt like it was an issue getting my grade 3s when it came to striding or anything like that. This being able to fetch him out is nice. And total honesty, David is a lot better because of the strides that I'll be getting into in a moment. And just having the retire 2 is very important. Getting into triggers, simple for heals, because cutest witch heal. We have a trigger with the skill. This gives your opponent's Vanguard minus 5k if they have 2 zeros on board. So continuous during your turn, if you have a Vanguard with witch in its card name and its Legion, it gains the red text. Act, put this on top of deck, shuffle deck. If your opponent has 2 zeros on board, and choose one of your opponent's Vanguards, and it gets minus 5k. So this is important once again if you want to make your rush turns in. And this is when your Vanguard is Legion. You are not able to use this when you're in stride, unfortunately. If it did, this would be a relatively good deck if that were the case. Unfortunate that as much as I like this deck, it's not that great, but still, it's kind of fun to play. And we have 4 crits. I don't have another one of this. That's it. 4 draw triggers. I don't like stand triggers in total honesty, but the more I thought about it, maybe it would have been okay to play it, but the draw triggers always help. Just being able to use this as retire fodder for some of your skills is just really good. In total honesty, just getting the hand is relatively important, and I did try rainbow triggers at first, but the crits are just way too important. They're too devastating when your opponent is at a low power and they have to just over guard for stuff. All right, get ready for the funky G zone. 2 Aura Geyser. So this is the reason why I wanted to run David. So Aura Geyser Dragon skill is when it attacks, Counterblast 1, Soul Blast 1, kill 2 of your rear guards and flip a copy and reveal the top 2. For each grade 1 or less revealed, it gets 5k. And this being able to retire David is important because if you do this and you kill David, you don't need to hurt your board state and you draw 5 cards. 2 from this, 3 from drive check. So being able to plus like that is pretty important for a deck that already has a low hand size, and just netting you the first stride early advantage is just really important. 4 of the only stride that matters, Sinclair. So this actually is the most fun thing I've ever seen in a stride. This just makes the deck quality. So her act is CB1, if you have a Heart with Witch and your opponent has 2 grade 0s on board, your opponent reveals the top 10 cards of their deck, chooses a 0, writes it as stand, shuffles deck, and they get red text at the beginning of the guard step of the battle that unit was attacked. They need to counterblast 1. If they do, they can choose anything from their hand and call it to Guardian Circle as rest. And of course, at the end of the turn, they choose a card from Soul and write it as stand. All this means is that they write a grade 0. For them to guard from anything from their hands, they need to counterblast 1. They can guard with 0s and not pay the counterblast because it is of equal grade as their Vanguard. But if they want to guard with grade 1 or greater, they need to counterblast 1 for it. So once again, if you like push them to 5 or something like that, you remove them, or if they don't have PGs, you just remove their ability to G-guard. So this actually is some quite good killing potential. We got 2 Drag Driver Luard. This is in here because it's not in my Luard deck. That's actually it. I remember using this like once. That was it. Never really went into it. It's kind of hilarious as a stride just if you want to make a board state because you don't really use your soul. Well, you do use your soul if you draw into your pieces, but in total honesty, you're going to have plenty of soul for your skills. So this by itself is kind of nice just to create the grade 1, make a column if you are able to, or just make a large Vanguard swing. 1 Spectral, because it's not in my Luard deck. This is kind of good actually. This is a finisher if you have the counterblast for it. and it is relatively devastating. If you push your opponent to 5 and just the pressure of it, it's just great. 1 carnivore. 1 is the sweet spot for this deck. This just being able to hit your opponent's board is nice, and you could just kill a draw trigger, which is not that bad, and just they kill 2. They can't kill 2 of the rear guards, you get plus 4k to your front row. It's relatively cheap for a cost, so it's just really efficient. 1 Drag Strider. I bought an extra of this, and it's in here because it's not in my Luard deck. Simple as that. GB2 skill, Ritual 7. Kill 2 of your rear guards and discard 2 cards. Plus 3k for each card discarded. And if you discard 2 or more, this gets crit plus 1, drive plus 1, and they can't call grade 1s or greater to guard circle from hand. I actually went into this once, and it won me a game. And I was put in a late game scenario. I basically discarded my entire hand and just banked on them not having enough shield, and it actually worked. This did save me. This is, you know, here because it's not in my Luard deck. I basically have an extra, but it did let me win a game, so I guess it showed its value. We got 1 GB8. You're never gonna get there. You should be killing on Drag Strider. If you don't kill on Drag Strider, you're gonna have a bad time. That's really all I can say about it. We got 1 Screw You. This is good because, once again, guard this, discard the draw trigger, get plus 10k. It literally pays for itself. This is why we run the draws for discard and retire fodder. It's really important that we have that in this deck so that we can get these skills off. 3 Drag Wizard Bronanch. So, when this is placed on G, reveal top 5, choose all the grade 1s from among them, call them to G, and put the rest on bottom of deck. This is good for setting up your Drag Strider, and overall, this is kind of like a pseudo quintet wall. Really important for Legion. You can stride your first turn, use this to G guard. Overall, the deck is fun, it's kind of fast, and your game plan is to go into your strides, use your retire skills and everything like that. Try to push them down if you can. And then Legion, go for your kill turns on either Sinclair or Reyes. It's just a fun deck, actually. And it's a waifu deck. And that's really it. Mario from Team TYC here. And until next time, I'll see you guys later.